I was sitting on my couch Sunday night, coffee in hand, watching the Golden Globes like I always do, ready to screenshot dresses and keep it moving. But I had to pause the TV, then rewind, because something felt off. These weren't just new hairstyles or bold fashion choices. Some of these women looked different in a way that made my stomach drop. And as the night went on, I realized this wasn't about beauty anymore. It was about pressure, aging, and a system that's quietly breaking women down. I want to start with Angelina Jolie, because the concern around her didn't start this year. It's been quietly building for a long time. When the 49-year-old walked the Golden Globes red carpet, fans immediately noticed how different she looked, and not in a surface-level way. This wasn't about makeup or styling. It felt heavier than that. Angelina has endured years of emotional strain, her divorce, ongoing custody battles, and intense family stress. And when someone carries that much for that long, it eventually shows. Watching her stand there, still working, still showing up, was powerful, but also heartbreaking. Not because she didn't look perfect, but because she looked human. And seeing personal pain play out so publicly reminds us that even icons aren't immune to life's weight. Now we need to talk about Ariana Grande, because the concern around her has been loud and constant for months. At the Golden Globes, the 32-year-old looked stunning, but many fans couldn't ignore how dramatically different she appeared compared to just a year ago. And here's where this gets complicated. Ariana has addressed it herself, repeatedly and emotionally, explaining that the body people romanticize from the past was actually her at her unhealthiest. She's asked people to stop commenting on her appearance, yet the scrutiny hasn't stopped. That's the exhausting part. Even when a woman explains her truth, even when she sets boundaries, the public keeps analyzing anyway. Watching Ariana navigate that level of pressure while trying to protect her health and privacy feels less like celebrity gossip and more like a cautionary tale. Nicole Kidman's appearance at the Golden Globes sparked a different kind of concern, and it's important to understand why. At 58, she has been working relentlessly, while also navigating profound personal loss. Nicole lost her mother in 2024, and she has openly acknowledged that grief and stress have affected her in ways she didn't expect, even physically. Fans noticed that she looked noticeably different, and the change felt sudden, not stylized. This didn't read as someone chasing youth or trends. It looked like the weight of life showing up in real time. When grief settles into the body, it doesn't ask permission, and it doesn't follow Hollywood timelines. Watching Nicole continue to show up, to work, to smile through something so deeply personal felt less like spectacle and more like quiet endurance. That's what people were responding to. Demi Moore's moment at the Golden Globes felt almost painfully ironic. At 63, she walked the carpet promoting a film that directly critiques Hollywood's obsession with youth and the extreme lengths women are pushed to in order to stay relevant. And yet, fans couldn't help but notice how dramatically different she looked. There was immediate speculation about cosmetic work, but that's not the real story here. The real story is the impossible contradiction women in this industry live inside of. Even when you're making art that exposes the system, you're still expected to survive within it. Demi showing up, still leading films at her age, is powerful. But the pressure she appears to be under, even now, is heartbreaking. Her appearance isn't a failure of authenticity. It's evidence of how relentless Hollywood standards remain, no matter how accomplished you are. Cynthia Erivo's transformation has been closely tied to her role in Wicked, and she's been honest about how demanding that process was. At 39, she pushed her body through intense training, long shoot days, wire work, and constant physical strain, all in service of the role. Fans noticed the changes and expressed concern, especially as the press tour continued. Cynthia has framed it as dedication to her craft, and I believe her. But it still raises an uncomfortable question. When does commitment become self-sacrifice? And why is that line so often crossed by women? Male actors rarely face the same expectation to physically transform to this extreme, let alone be praised for enduring it. Cynthia's situation isn't about choice versus vanity. It's about how Hollywood rewards women for pushing themselves past healthy limits and calls it professionalism. Melissa McCarthy's transformation stood out for a completely different reason. At 55, she didn't arrive at the Golden Globes looking alarmingly different. She arrived looking genuinely happy. Her change has happened slowly, over several years, and she's been honest about what really made the difference. Not a crash plan, not extreme measures, but a mental shift. Melissa has talked about finally letting go of the constant self-criticism and anxiety around her body, and that peace shows. She looked confident, radiant, and fully present, standing beside her husband, comfortable in her own skin. Even so, some people still speculated, which says more about us than it does about her. For women watching at home, Melissa represents something rare in Hollywood. Proof that change doesn't have to hurt, and health doesn't have to come at the cost of joy. Kathy Bates' appearance at the Golden Globes was one of the most striking of the night, and not because of shock value. At 77, she has been remarkably open about her health journey, explaining that her changes were motivated by quality of life, mobility, and long-term health, not vanity. She's spoken honestly about lifestyle changes and the role medication played, refusing to wrap it in secrecy or shame. And yet, even with that transparency, reactions were mixed. Some people celebrated her. Others questioned whether the transformation was too much. That response says everything. Even when a woman is clear about her reasons, even when those reasons are medical and personal, she's still expected to justify her body. Kathy represents the complexity of this conversation. Real health progress, real honesty, and a culture that still struggles to simply let women change without judgment at any age. Selena Gomez's appearance at the Golden Globes sparked a reaction that honestly felt exhausting to watch. At 33, she has been more transparent than almost any celebrity about her health, her lupus, her kidney transplant, and the medications that cause natural fluctuations in her body. None of this is a mystery. And yet, the moment she appeared looking different, speculation exploded. People questioned her face, her body, her choices, as if she hadn't already explained this 100 times. That's what makes this so frustrating. Even when a woman tells the truth, even when her medical history is public knowledge, it's still not enough. Selena showed up happy, confident, and supported by her husband, and that should have been the story. Instead, her body once again became public property, dissected by people who refused to listen. Emma Stone had one of the biggest nights of the Golden Globes, and she looked absolutely beautiful. At 37, she walked the carpet glowing, confident, and celebrated for her work. But alongside the praise, there was a quieter conversation happening. Fans couldn't stop noticing how smooth and polished her features looked, to the point where some said she felt almost unrecognizable. And that's the part that feels sad. Not because she looked anything less than stunning, but because something familiar seemed softened or erased. Emma's expressive face, her quirks, her individuality have always been part of her charm. When everyone starts to look a little too perfect, a little too similar, we lose something important. The concern here isn't about procedures or choices. It's about a culture that slowly smooths away what makes people distinct and calls it beauty. Jennifer Lawrence's appearance at the Golden Globes hit a nerve for a lot of people, and I understand why. She built her early career on resisting Hollywood's rules, embracing a strong, athletic body, refusing to apologize for eating, and being unapologetically herself. At 35, she looked beautiful on the carpet, but she also looked different in a way longtime fans immediately noticed. Some of the qualities that once made her feel so distinctive seemed softened. And that's what's hard to sit with. If someone as powerful, outspoken, and successful as Jennifer eventually felt pressure to conform, what does that say about the system? It suggests that no amount of confidence or success fully protects women from these expectations. The machine doesn't bend, it waits. And sooner or later, it asks everyone to fall in line. Jenna Ortega's moment on the Golden Globes carpet sparked a reaction that honestly made me uncomfortable. At just 23, she's still at the very beginning of her career, and her body has always been naturally petite. Yet this year, comments questioning whether she was okay flooded social media, with people dissecting her face and speculating about possible procedures. That kind of scrutiny usually doesn't hit actresses until much later in their careers, and seeing it aimed at someone so young feels deeply troubling. Jenna is still figuring out who she is, both personally and professionally, and she's doing it under a microscope that doesn't allow for growth or change. When women are pressured to alter their appearance before they've even had time to fully become themselves, it raises serious questions about long-term impact emotionally and physically. Nikki Glaser is an interesting case, because unlike so many people in Hollywood, she doesn't pretend. At 41, hosting the Golden Globes for the second year in a row, she looked noticeably different, and she owned it. Nikki has been brutally honest about getting procedures, calling them investments in herself, and she jokes about it in her signature self-deprecating way. That kind of transparency feels refreshing in an industry built on secrecy. And yet, even with all that honesty, people still questioned whether she'd gone too far. Which raises the obvious question: can women ever win? If you stay silent, you're accused of lying. If you tell the truth, you're criticized for your choices. Nikki exists in that impossible middle space where authenticity is praised in theory but punished in practice, and it takes real confidence to stand there under the spotlight. Pamela Anderson's appearance at the Golden Globes felt like a full-circle moment. At 58, she's been on a very public journey toward embracing a more natural, makeup-free look, which in itself is quietly radical in Hollywood. Seeing her return to her iconic platinum blonde hair felt familiar and powerful. But it also opened up a more complicated conversation. While Pamela speaks about feeling free without makeup, some fans noticed subtle signs of enhancement that didn't quite match the idea of total effortlessness. And that's the tension, isn't it? In Hollywood, even natural often requires invisible work. Pamela's evolution isn't about dramatic change, it's about the performance of ease. The expectation to look flawless while appearing like you tried not at all. And that kind of pressure can be just as exhausting as full glam, just dressed up in a different narrative. Mindy Kaling's transformation feels different because it looks lived in and real. At 46, she's been open about making gradual, sustainable changes focusing on movement, consistency, and healthier habits that fit into her life, not overhaul it. At the Golden Globes, she looked confident and comfortable, not rushed or extreme. And that's why her journey resonates. She hasn't sold a miracle, and she hasn't pretended it was effortless. Still, even Mindy faced speculation, which says a lot about how conditioned we've become to doubt anything that doesn't look dramatic or fast. For women watching at home, her approach feels attainable. It feels human. And in an industry that rewards shortcuts and shock value, Mindy's steady, honest progress stands out as a quiet act of resistance. Ashton Kutcher wasn't someone I expected to include in this conversation, but his appearance at the Golden Globes made the double standard impossible to ignore. At 47, walking the carpet with Mila for their first major award show in years, fans immediately noticed how much he'd changed. There was some concern, some speculation, but it came and went quickly. And that's the point. When men show up looking different, it's chalked up to stress, aging, or life. When women do the same, the conversation drags on for months. Ashton's transformation wasn't treated as a failure or a crisis. It was treated as normal. That contrast says everything. It highlights how uneven the expectations still are, and how much more grace men are afforded when their bodies reflect time, health challenges, or simply being human. What shocked me most this year wasn't any single transformation, it was the industry itself. Hollywood is quietly pulling us back toward one narrow standard, and too many women are paying the price. We deserve to age, to change, and to look different from one another without shame. Let's choose compassion over comparison, for them and for ourselves. If this conversation resonated with you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more honest, real conversations like this.